Okay, so before we jump into this, if you're someone who has zero coding knowledge at all, then this video isn't really for you, but I would suggest if you are interested in modding the game, you watch a Unity tutorial, because that's going to get you familiar with coding knowledge and also how to familiarize yourself within Unity, which is what the game is made in. But if you are someone who has previous coding knowledge, JavaScript, C#, or Python, whatever, then you're in the right place. If you're comfortable in a coding language, then you're in the right place. If you don't know C#, that's fine. You'll get comfortable, learning the syntax as you go along. And you don't really need a bunch of Unity knowledge if you're already comfortable in your own language. So what I will do, I'll just go over here, and I am going to be referencing this wiki here. It's currently, they have a standardized way of setting up the mod, which I think is useful. So I'm going to be kind of going over that. However, it's, as of this recording, it's not completely done. If you go down here, they don't really tell you how to write your own hook. Although they do link some useful resources on how to do that, but it is for a different game. It's not for Peak, but it is still useful. But this tutorial is just going to be on how to, writing your first hook with, Peak in mind and not the different mod. Now, if you want, you could skip this part, but if you're interested in uploading your mod to Thunderstore, then I would suggest creating a Thunderstore account. And you could do that by logging in with either Discord or GitHub. Personally, I will log in with GitHub. Alright, now that I'm logged in, well, for you, it might show you something else that you'd have to, authorize it, but now I'm logged in. And so what I want to do is go to, I believe it's settings, yep, and go on teams, and then create a team. So I'll create team. Make sure that your team name is something that you actually want, because once you name it, you can't delete it and you can't rename it. Choose your team name, and then once you do that, you should have something that looks like this. And we'll get back to this at another time, but this will help us with uploading our own mod. Now, one important tool that that you need to get is the .NET SDK. Now, the .NET SDK is basically going to help us to decompile the game code, and as well as compile our own code, and use other third-party libraries. It does a bunch of good things that we need, and we do that by using this cool SDK. However, we kind of don't need to install this manually, because we're going to be using Visual Studio. And once you get Visual Studio, then you don't really need to manually download the .NET SDK, because Visual Studio comes with the .NET SDK once you get it. So I'm gonna install Community 2022. I'm gonna get that. Save. Okay, now that it's done, I'm gonna click on the XC. Might be a pop-up. The screen goes black. Click on yes. Continue. Okay, and now you should see this installer pop up. And now we can just click on .NET right here, and that's all we need to do. I'm going to actually uncheck pilot, live share, and that should be about it. Now I'm just going to click on install, and I'll see you once it's done. Alright, now that it's done installing, we can just launch this. To make sure that .NET is actually installed, press Command R, type in CMD in this thing here, and type in .NET. And if this shows up, then you're good. Everything's working fine. Actually, let's just check the version real quick. Oh, we got that. Okay, version 9. Okay, that's good. For some reason that didn't install. Make sure, okay, click on modify, and make sure that .NET was clicked. Make sure .NET over here was also, all these were checked as well, because we need that. And okay, so I'm gonna close that. And by default, actually, the Visual Studio isn't on my desktop, so to get that, I'm just gonna type in Visual Studio. I'm going to click on this here, open file location. I'm just going to copy this and paste it on my desktop. That way I don't have to constantly, okay. Visual Studio, and now it should open up fine. Skip and I'll add account later. Dark. And okay, it should look like this once you're done. And okay, but I'm gonna actually close that now since I don't really need that. I'm gonna go here to the wiki page, which will be linked in the description. All these will be linked in the description. And what they instruct us to do is to run this command in the terminal. Now, if you're going to be making mods, I do suggest having a folder where you store all your mods. For me, I have them all stored in this location here. So I'm just going to type in cmd within this path. That way, it'll, the directory will be in this location. And so I'm going to copy, or I'm going to paste rather, the command that I copied earlier. And press enter. Okay, now that that's done, what else does it tell us to do? I'm just going to keep following along with this tutorial. Okay, so this is the, okay, so now we can just paste this in. And if you happen to skip the Thunderstore part, doesn't really matter, but you could still just enter a username. So the username I'm going to go with is Zeblo, because that's the name I used on Thunderstore. And if I ever, if assuming I didn't make a Thunderstore account, I could just use this name here. So I'm going to go with a Zeblo, and this right here is the ID of our mod. So this has to be unique. It can't just be a name, because if another mod shares the same ID as we do, then there will be complications there. Paste this in. Control V. Com, GitHub, and you could just go with your username. Zeblo. Oh wait, I just realized I can't even spell my own username. And the name of our mod, so Zeblo. You put your username, and then the name of your mod, so Zeblo dot, and for me it's gonna be YT Tut, and I'm gonna change the mod name to YT Tut. Okay, so it should look something like this. Just put in your own mod name and put in your own unique ID. Again, you really don't need a GitHub. You don't need anything really. You don't need a website or anything. This just has to be unique, and this is just a neat system of making it unique. Just having something like this. And now if I press enter, that should be created. Okay, so if I go to my modding folder where I store all my mods, it should be located in here. I'm just going to look for YT Tut. There it is, all the way at the bottom. Go to YT Tut, and I could just select the folder, I believe. Oh wait, now I should open with Open Project or Solution. I'm going to click Open Project or Solution. I'm going to go back to where my folder is. Mods, YT Tut. And there it is. I'm going to click on this .sln, and it should open with all the requirements that the mod has set up. So I'm just going to expand this and click on plugin. And there we go. So this is what the template looks like. It's just going to take some while to load all these DLLs in. If it doesn't load properly, then I could probably just restart the... Okay, there it is. It works. If you get this warning here, then that's probably just fine to ignore it. I've had this warning before, but everything works as according to the wiki, so it's probably fine. But the template works, everything's set up correctly, and now the only thing that's left is if we open the project, let's see, go to the file location, src. There's another step that we need to do that the wiki tells us that we should do, and it's to go to this config.build.userprops template and make a copy of it. And we're gonna paste it, rename, and I think that's what I need to do. Yes. User props, okay. So all we have to do is just make a copy of this folder here and remove the template part. And the wiki explains why that's, important. Okay, so one thing that we need is BepInEx, and BepInEx will basically allow us to inject our code into the game so that we can do anything that our mod allows us to do. So if we go here and click on manual download, and I'm going to click on save, and now if I go to, well, I'm going to open this, I guess it's going to be saved here. If I go on Steam, we could open up Steam, but I'm not going to do that right now. Actually, I'm going to go open file location. I'm going to go to Steam Apps, Common. I'm going to locate Peak, which is right here. And okay, so now that we have that, I'm going to go to, what was it? Oops. My downloads folder. I'm going to drag this in here, and I'm going to extract, copy this, and drag it in here. Now I need to close this, and since we already have this here, we can delete this BepInEx zip file here, and we can't actually. Okay, for this mod specifically, I am going to have to open up Steam, so hold on a second. Okay, and now that it's done installing, I'm going to click on play. And, well, okay, so there have been some talk about how maybe Vulkan will crash if you are modding, but then there's also talk of DXD will crash. Just choose one. If Vulkan crashes, switch to the other one and see if it works for you. Personally, for me, Vulkan works the best. So I'm just going to click on Vulkan and wait for the game to launch. Okay, so the game loads fine, which is good, but we are going to quit though. And the only reason why we did that was because if we go and open our, let's see, manage browse local files. If we open our folder here and we go to BepInEx, we'll see all these other folders that wasn't there before. So patches, all that stuff. And all that is loaded because we launched our game. And now finally, what we want to install is ILSpy. Now ILSpy is a decompilation tool, which will basically just help us to see the code that the game was made with. And by doing that, we can modify a bunch of stuff. So I'm just going to go down and search for, I think, okay, ILSpy installer x64 MSI. I'm going to get that one. Okay. Alright, now that it's done installing, I'm going to click on ILSpy installer. Next, install, finish, and okay, I'm going to go to, you should see it in your task or whatever this is called. So I'm going to click on ILSpy, and you should see a weird looking UI that's like bright mode, or I guess not, because I already had it before. But basically, if you want bright dark mode, go to view, theme, and select VS Code dark, because I think by default it looks like this. So just go to theme, and personally I like this version here. Now that you have this, in order to actually see the game code, let's go to Steam. Let's click on this cog here, and let's click on Manage, and click on Browse Local Files. Now, if we go to, I believe it's Peak Data, and Managed, we should see this Assembly C#. This Assembly C#, we want to click, drag this, and place it in here. Now, if we open this up, we can see, a bunch of things. I think it's this, we can scroll through a couple of these stuff. I know this dash here has some of the main code that we could look at. And I wonder if there's anything else. Base controllers, that's probably, yeah. So we can look at all these stuff. If we click on this thing here, this magnifying glass search tool, we could look for a bunch of stuff. So player, player is going to be a thing. So we could look for the player class, and all these stuff that we're looking at is, of course you probably guessed it, it's the game code. So, all of these things are things that we could modify in our code here. So if we look through some stuff, if anything looks interesting, we could probably modify it. Item slots, we could probably give ourselves, instead of 3, we could give ourselves 5 or 6 item slots. Let's see, what else could we modify? Maybe the jump, maybe something's called jump. So, actually, so if we wanted to see where else this item slots variable is referenced, since it's a public variable, that means it's likely referenced not just in this class, but in other classes as well. So if we wanted to see where else it's referenced, instead of using this search tool here, we could just type, right click on Analyze, and then we could see where it's being read, what it's being read by. So we see it's read by some character class, it's read by the player class here. It's read by a GUI manager. GUI manager might actually be pretty useful. So let's go to look at where that is. GUI manager. So, okay. UI rope. And this is a public class as well, which is super easy to modify. So we could look through all of this stuff. We could look through a bunch of these things. And you could just have, mess around with this. Like, see what looks fun to mess around with. See what looks easy just to get your foot in the door. I think GUI manager is going to be the easiest thing to mess with. Okay, so for those unfamiliar with Unity, you'll likely come across some of these methods a lot. So awake, start, and update. Now, all these methods are called once the script or the game object is spawned in the scene. So update, for example, is constantly being ran, and it's constantly doing all of this stuff every frame. Awake and start, however, are called exactly once. Awake does come before start, but both run exactly once. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's go back to Visual Studio, and I'm going to create a Harmony reference. So private read only Harmony. Let's go Harmony is equal to new and ID. The ID is our unique string that we put in the .NET area. And let's also let's go harmony dot patch all. Actually, we'll get back to that. So I'm going to make a folder called patches, which is conventional, and let's go to here. Let's close out this and close here. Let's go to GUI manager. So let's modify the GUI manager. So if I click on new item, GUI manager, we want the name of the class that we're modifying, and we'll also end it with patch. So we don't want a name conflict. Now, originally I was going to write this all manually, but just to save us some time, I'm going to paste in all of the code that I plan to touch up on. So, okay, what's happening right here? Well, when we denote a class with the harmony patch keyword, we're basically telling it that this stuff, these are not syntax errors, these are not, keyword errors or anything like that. This is normal. And so when we have type of GUI manager, name of GUI manager, we're basically telling Harmony that this method right here should be modifying the late update method. So if we go into ILSpy and we look for late update, we'll see this thing here. So we want to modify this method, and we're telling it, okay, it's of type GUI manager. It's not none of these types over here. It's only GUI manager. But we could also simplify this. We could actually simplify this. So if you go type of GUI manager, then we don't even need to have a GUI manager here. All the classes and all the methods that we'll make, we can just have name of, and we could simplify that even more. So, alright, we're modifying the late update method. What does postfix mean? Well, it's pretty simple. So if we go here, we could imagine that this is the game code and that this is our code. So if this is the game code, our code is being executed after the game code has ran. So that's basically how that works. So our code is right here, the game code is up here. That's what the postfix means. So our code would always run after the game code here. Pretty simple. And what I'm basically doing, well, I guess before we get into this chunk here, you'll notice this endgame variable right here. And this endgame variable, endgame, is up here. So I'm modifying this, I'm trying to get this variable. And how you get a variable using Harmony is you type this keyword, ref, and then type of the variable, which in this case is endgame counter, and the name of the variable, but we need 3 underscores. So with Harmony, you have to put 3 underscores before any of the variables you want to modify. If we wanted to modify fog rises, for example, then we would do something like ref game object, and then underscore, 3 underscores, fog. Actually, instead of just typing it, it's better to just copy it, just in case we get any typos. So copy, and do paste. Now if we wanted to set that to inactive, fog rises dot set active false, then it would look like this. So we could do this with any variable. And that's basically how that works. So I'm gonna take that out though, because we don't want to do that. Alright, so next up is what are we actually doing here? Well, I'm trying to... Now this is an unconventional way of doing this. You don't typically use keyboard.current if you're trying to use keybinds, because it gets pretty messy. But I typically do it just for testing stuff, and because we're just testing, it doesn't really matter. People would recommend that you use Unity's new input system if you're actually thinking about publishing a mod, but just because we're testing, it doesn't really matter. But once I press 5, then endgame is going to call this method. So what is this method? So, well, if we go in endgame counter, which is the type that the endgame variable is referencing, then we'll see this this method here. So we could have called any one of these methods, but I'm calling this win method here. So when I press 5 on my keyboard, this method is being called through the endgame variable. Now, another trick that you could use, if we go back to GUI Manager, you'll notice that there's a bunch of variable names here. And if you wanted to modify, like, let's say 5 variables, then it would be pretty tedious to name all 5 variables, like by using ref, fog, and using their type. It gets to a point. So to speed things up, we could use the type of the class that we're modifying, so GUI Manager, and we use this keyword __ instance. Make sure it's spelled correctly, instance. And then instead of doing endgame, we could do instance and the variable name, so endgame.win. That way we get what we want, and I will do that for this as well. Instance endgame win group. There we go. And that's basically one way to speed things up. You don't have to reference every single variable name. We could just use the class type and use the instance special keyword here, and that works. So now if we wanted to actually run this in our game, if we wanted to inject this, I'm going to type, actually press Control B. This should build correctly. But here's a problem though. Even though we've built our mod, this will not run because we still need to patch this in our plugins folder. So if we go to our plugins folder and we do _harmony.patch all, then this will work. However, there's another step. You could go even further than this and do assembly.get executing assembly, and this is just for some edge case that may happen. In the Harmony docs, it mentions that just doing patch all, there's a chance it doesn't work, but doing assembly.get assembly should be better. But it's fine either way. So now if we build, I'm actually going to get rid of this because that's kind of bothering me. I'm going to build again. And now if we go to Steam and manage browse local files, BepInEx, plugins, now it's going to be there. It should automatically be there, but if it's not, then you could go to your Visual Studio, open file location. Okay, click on this. Look for open folder in File Explorer. Click on SRC. Look for artifacts. Go to bin. Go to white debug. And copy this. And then go back to your plugins folder. And if it's not there, you would just, paste it in. And then it should be good. And then we go back to Steam and just click play. And I'm going to launch with Vulkan. Now I've spawned in. Let's see. What was the button again? It was number... So if I press 5, there should be a win that pops up on screen. I'm going to walk a bit. I'm getting a bit laggy for some reason. Alright. Now if I press 5, there we go. It shows victory. And now if I press 6, I should get rid of it. There we go. Another thing you could do is just look for other methods you want to modify. A good kind of tip as well is that you could kind of think of something that you see in game and try to guess like the name of it. For example, poison. I know that poison's a thing in the game. So what if we wanted to mess with something that's poison? We could look for poison, and see where we could find it. There's one in GUI Manager apparently. Could have also just did poison to see if there's anything that we can modify in here. There is, and so there's stuff like that. I'm personally going to modify the sugar method because I know that we could mess with this. So let's see. I do have a method written for this method, so we could modify this here, which is already done here. So if I press 7, we're going to be calling this method in the game. And if I want to get rid of it, then I could just press 8. Which calls this thing here. So all we're doing, we're not even modifying anything. All we're doing is just calling these methods regularly. And so I already have it built, so I could just press play, move it in. Maybe that would be really laggy for you. If I press 7, I should be very sugary. There we go. So it's super sugary. Now if I press 8, I believe, it should go away. There we go. 7, 8, 7, 8, 7, 8. Works. Now, something else that we can mess with is the arguments within these methods. Let's say we wanted to change the value of this here. We wanted to increase it. And we wanted to do this for, which one do we do? Poison. Let's say poison. Let's say every injury or anything we take should always be poison, and it should always be by a certain amount. How would we do that? Okay, so let's go here. Now, before we were modifying the late update, which we were doing by just pressing a key and, you know, kind of cheating, hackingly, like, calling these methods. But what if we wanted to actually modify a method properly, like this one, for example? Now, this isn't called every frame. This is called conditionally. So in any instance where we take damage or are getting poisoned, for example, then this method will be called. But what we want to do now is make sure that regardless of what effect we take, we will always be poisoned. Now, you might have noticed this already. So our code, original code, this is of type prefix. So what that means is that our code is up here and the original code is here. Before, we were using postfix, which was the opposite. Now, prefix, our code runs before the original game code. So now, we have to actually return true. That's why we're getting that error there. And now, we have to declare a type. So now, let's do type is equal to character, professions, and let's see, poison. And the amount is, let's say, 14. Oh, it's a float. No? Okay, what's the amount? That should probably be fine. Okay, so basically what's happening now, once this method is called at all, because we're doing it before, we're setting the type to poison. So the type's going to automatically jump to here, and it's going to set it to a certain amount. So if we just build this now, it should automatically be, oh, that's the wrong one. It should automatically be in here. If you look at the time, 7:48, yep. Okay, so if we go back to play, just go back here, you'll see it clear. Yeah, there it is. So if you notice, the sides on the screen are getting purple. This doesn't actually give me poison in my, where the health usually is, though. That's fine. Okay, so it works. Now, something important to note here is that this is not a void. So before we were doing like private static void, which basically means we don't have to return anything. By the way, every harmony method should be a static type. Okay, but up here, when we're doing a prefix, we should have it as a bool, not a void. So if we do private static bool, we're asking, okay, do we want to return this method as true or false? If we do true, then that means the original code here will run, which is good. which is what we want. If we do false, however, then if we build this, anytime we are supposed to see a visual effect of when we take damage, it's not going to show. It's not going to show anything because we've told the game that we don't want this method to run anymore. If this method is called, don't call it. And that's what that does. So if we just to show you an example, we can actually get rid of this. We don't need it. To build again. Okay, so now if I step in the fire, there should be no effects appearing. And there we go. There's no effects on the side of the screen like there usually is. It's just regular burning, no visual effects. And there we go. Okay, we don't have to sit through the whole thing. Now I want to show you what you can do using another class. So mountain progress handler is something we can use. Patch, add, and let's go with using harmony lib. We want to get the GUI manager, and because GUI manager has an instance, so if we go over here and we do Control F and look for instance, because GUI manager has this, it should be up here somewhere. There we go. It's static. We could just reference this from anywhere in our code. So we could do GUI manager.instance, and I believe it's the set hero title, yes, which has its own methods here. So we could look for this method here. What's it called? Set hero title, okay. And I think ILSpy has like this weird bug where if you Control F onto a method and just scroll, then it goes all the way up. I don't know why it does that. I think it's one of the recent versions. Anyways, set hero title. What I want to have happen is I want to press a number on my keyboard, and I want the text to be whatever I set it as. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it the string that it wants. I'm just going to say boop. Got your nose. What? Oh. But we're still missing an argument here, and that is the audio clip. And to fix that, what we could do is do mountain progress handler instance, and what I did originally to find this was reference, okay, where is hero title being called? I clicked on analyze. Okay, let me get rid of this so it's not too confusing. And I looked at where it's being used. It's being used by mountain progress handler. And when it's called, it looks like this. So GUI manager instance set hero clip, and it looks like this. And what we're doing is basically replacing this with our own string. And we're also, what we need is this. So what does progress point look like? What does that look like? Okay, progress point is this thing. It's an array. And what do arrays have? They have indexes. So we can index to, I don't know which one, but I don't think it really matters. All it needs is just the first index. So progress points 0. What was it called? Progress points instance dot, what am I doing wrong here? Progress points. Oh wait, I think it needs a clip. Okay, there we go. Now it should work. Mountain progress handler patch. Now if I build Control B. So now that we're here, once I press 9, you should see boop. There we go. let's see what we can do here. So all we're doing is basically just taking this method here, and whenever it's called, we're ignoring the original text and replacing it with our own. So let's do that. Let's do a harmony. So harmony patch name of UI manager dot set hero title, and it will be a prefix because we gotta modify the arguments. Private static bool set hero patch, and let's copy, what was it? Okay, so this stuff here. I actually need just the text. I don't need the other than that. So string text, and let's set text equal to boop, and return, put the colon there, return true. Now that should be it. That should be as simple as it gets. So now if I build, actually, you know what? Let's spice it up a bit. Yeah, I feel like I'm daring today. Okay. Okay, so now we're on the shore. If I step a couple feet forwards, I should say boop. Hey, there we go. And that's it. That's your simple challenge. That you got it. Alright, so now what we could do is add a config to our mod. So if we go, I'm actually going to make a new folder and call it utils. And in that, I'm going to make something called, let's say, oh, I don't want to call it that. Let's just say zconfig. Let's just say that. And I'm going to make it a public class. And let's do a public static config entry. And let's make it a string. And I want it to be the hero title. So let's make it, let's say it's pop-up text. Sure. And now we can make a public static void all configs, and let's say it's okay, so that's our config file. And let's go to plugin, and in here let's just do zconfig dot all configs and type config. Okay, there we go. Now save, and let's see. Okay, that should be it for now. Okay, so it does get the reference. It's cool. So now going back to GUI manager patch, I'm going to replace this with zconfig dot popup text dot value. And now if we were to load this, it'll inherit from this here. So I'm going to build this. And right now, if we wanted to mess with the config, we'd actually have to go into manage browse local files, BepInEx config, and it would appear here. But because we haven't actually added it yet, I did press build. I think it should be the latest version, right? Yeah, sure. Okay. So play. All right. Now that we're here, what was I doing again? All right. Okay. So when I step on the shore, it should show blue. There we go. And if we wanted to change that to something else, I'm going to close out of that. If we wanted to change that to yellow, we could do that and it would work. So that's how you set up configs. You could add as many as you want. You can have them in different sections if you wanted to add like a different If you wanted to add like an integer, for example, you could do that. You could say int test. We'll just do that. Test. Oh yeah, let's copy this and say test. You should have it under the same section, and you could say, you know, give it a number. You know, you can mess around with this and, you know, do your own stuff. Okay, so now I'm in Unity, and you don't have to be here. I'm just going to show you a quick example of how things work, because the Peak game is made within the Unity game engine. So anything you can do in Unity, you can mod programmatically into the game. So an example of that is that, let's say we want to add a UI. So we go here, we go UI, Text Mesh Pro, and again, you don't have to be following along here. I'm just showing you an example. Let's say, okay, I just want to get a good angle. There we go. Oh, nope, that's not it. Okay, there we go. Let's say we wanted this text to show at the top right of the screen. So if the player spawns in, then this text will be at the top right section of the screen. Well, if we go to the right section here in the inspector, we can see that there's a thing called the rect transform and a couple of other things that we could mess with. Now, I want this to be the top right, so I'm going to click on this UI here and click on top right. And now if I position this to 0, then it's going to be at the top right section. So if I could also move this manually to be here, then that also works as well. So cool. Now, if we wanted to do this in, if we wanted to mod this, then we don't have all these cool looking UI stuff. We can't like drag and drop things like we can here in Unity, you know, because we're only working with code. So how do we do this in here? Well, we can use a tool. And you actually don't need this tool to do this, but it does make things a bit easier. So I'm going to go get Unity Explorer. And I'm going to get the, let's see, which one was it? BepInEx 5. And just get this one instead. Okay, and now that it's done, I'm going to go to Steam. I'm going to go to Manage Browse Local Files. And I'm going to go to Downloads, see if I can find it. I'm going to copy this, Control C. I'm going to go back, BepInEx, plugins, and we want this to be here, but we also want it to be extracted. So I'm going to place this folder in the plugins file. So once I do that, I can delete this. And now once we load our game, okay, close that. If we load our game, then you'll see this UI right here. You'll see a bunch of things. I'm going to close some of this actually. And I'll go into a game to show you kind of a bit more what things looks like. Well, actually, let's see. You can mess around with things here. So all of these things that you're seeing right here are things that are in the game. Like that, everything that's currently existing in the scene right now. So if I disable main menu, it should go blank. Or I guess it'll delete that stuff. I think the map, if I disable that, yeah, there it goes. So you can mess with a bunch of these things. You can click on them to see their positioning, all that stuff. And the useful thing about this is if you wanted to add something to the canvas, so if you wanted to add like a UI, and I'll go into a game to show you, give you a better idea what that means. Okay, so now I'm spawned in. If I click on Object Explorer, and if I go to Game, and again, like everything that you see here is a game object that is present in the scene. So I scroll up, I know that this game thing here has a bunch of these other game objects, and one of them is the GUI manager. So if I go to GUI manager, and let's see if I disable that, then you can see all of our UI stuff is gone. If I enable it, it's back. If I went into, say, Canvas HUD, and I looked at the inventory game object, and if I disable that, inventory is gone. And you can click on this, you can mess with stuff, you can go into their Rex transform and edit that, and we could do a bunch of stuff with that. Why this is useful is because we don't have to guess, if we're making a UI, we don't have to guess how it'll look like. So, for example, if I close the game right now, and I do have, if I make, let's make a folder, scripts, yeah, let's do that. And let's say I wanted to make a class called show pause, and add that, and I do have it copied. Alright, there we go. So I have all this copied, and I just pasted it. So I'll go over this a bit. If you notice, I'm using a harmony patch instead of a specific type. So because of that, that means that I don't have to, I'm not constrained to just one class. Like in this instance, I'm constrained to just the GUI manager. But in here, I can have GUI manager, I can have main camera, I can have anything I want, but I do have to specify which type it is, which type of class I'm trying to modify. So I can't just have name of by itself, like that. I can't do that because it's not specified here. And so I have to specify which type class I'm modifying. Okay, and so what this code basically does is it gets we're modifying the set hero title, which is when you walk on the shore and it shows a pop-up of you being on the shore. And when that happens, I'm telling it to get this game object. It's trying to find the game GUI manager canvas HUD, which is in the scene, which we briefly kind of looked at. And so I want this parent to be a variable, and I want player position to equal to a new game object. So you can kind of imagine this right here as if I made a UI and did, let's see, and not even UI, create empty. What I'm basically doing is this, text pause. So you can imagine this as me basically creating this here. So text is equal to pause. It's creating an empty game object. It has no attribute, it has nothing. But what I'm doing here now is I'm setting the parent to canvas HUD. So you can imagine me doing this. So you can imagine this being called a canvas HUD, and I'm setting the parent to this. And that's basically what I've done so far. And so if I go back here and I do text is equal to player pause, player position.add component text mesh pro. When you add a component, you're basically doing this. So text pause is selected, add a component, text mesh pro, text UI. Is it this one? Say it's this one. Yeah. And so far, and I don't even need to make this a variable because I never use it or modify it. So it could just be on its own. But I'm adding the text mesh pro component. And, you know, that's how that looks like. And here in Unity, and if I go to main camera, I want it to constantly add, I want it to constantly update with our position. So what's happening now is that it checks if player position is not equal to null. And if it's not null, then every frame it's going to get the text mesh pro component which we added. So instead of adding it now, it's just going to get it, and it's going, what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, text has this attribute here, and we're setting this attribute to our player position. Well, it's really it's getting the camera position, but it's basically the same as a player position. So we're constantly updating what our position is by doing this. Also, a quick little note, when you're working with UI, when you're setting the parent to a UI component right here, because this right here is a UI component. When you're doing that, you want to set the world position stays to false, because that tells Unity that this should not be in a 3D space, it should be in a 2D space. So that's why we set this to false. But if you're working with a 3D object, then you would set it to, well, you would just remove it. You wouldn't have it at all, because by default it is true. But that's what we would do. Okay, and so now if we were to run this, say Control B. Alright, and now I'm in a game, and again, I want to go over that once this method is called setHeroTitle, then all of this will be ran. So if I go here, and you can see my position is changing. You can see this white text on screen. I didn't make it look pretty, but it is there. You can see when I move, the number changes. And if we go into our Object Explorer, and we go to Game, and we look for, we're basically looking for this path, because this is what we were looking for. This is what we set the parent to be. Game and GUI Manager and Canvas HUD. So if I look for that, Game, GUI Manager, Canvas HUD, then we should see our custom text object here. There it is. This isn't in the game by default because we created it. And now if we look at the rect transform, which in Unity looks like this, then, oh, it looks like this. Then we can go here, and it might lag a bit. I'm gonna disable the method because we don't need all these. We don't need these three things for looking at this specifically. But the rect transform. Okay, so let's say you were making a UI. I'm gonna close that, and you weren't sure how to position this correctly. Well, you could use to make this easier on yourself. This tool makes it a lot easier to modify things. So if we wanted to change the position, let's say instead of 0, it's 20. So where does that go? It goes to the side. And if we did 90, apply, and you can see that it's changing a lot. Apply. Now I want this to be at the top right. So let's see how that looks in Unity as a reference. So top right, the anchor, okay, so the anchors are all 1, 1, 1, 1. So let's make all the anchors 1. Let's see, where is that anchor? Okay, 1, 1, 1, 1. I hit apply, and it's gone off screen right now. But if we do, okay, the pivot is also, what is a pivot? The pivot is 0.5. Okay, that's good. Okay, so if we do 0, 0, should be right here. Okay, let's bring it down a bit. I think it's 40. No, negative 40. There we go. Let's say negative 90 and do 10. What about 20? Negative 30. There we go, okay. So now it's at the top right of the screen. When I move around, it moves. And what we could do with this information now is that if we go back to the inspector, instead of having it spawn just at the center, we can copy this information. So if we copy 140, negative 90, the anchor position, and we go to our code here, then we could look at what these attributes are called. So we're modifying the rect transform, and we're modifying the anchor position. So I could do rect transform rect is equal to player pause get rect transform. And so now I can do rect dot anchor position is equal to vector 2 or new vector 2 40, and we could do something like this. And now we could also do rect dot pivot is equal to vector 2 0.5f, 0.5f. Now if we close the game and I do Control B, then it should all be correctly spawned at the top right of the screen, and we don't have to manually place it there this time. Right, now if I go on the beach, there we go, it's at the top right, we don't have to manually do anything, and it's already there. Okay. So to publish our mod to Thunderstore, we could go over here to the wiki. It suggests that we add in this command here, so I'm going to copy this. But actually before we do that, in the folder where we store our mod, so if we open up the folder with the file explorer and we go to above the source, the main files that you want to edit is the changelog, icon, license, and readme. You kind of don't need, well, you could still upload it without the license, but it is good to have at least an MIT license. But the things you want to change are the changelog, icon, and readme. By default, this icon is going to be blank. Well, it's going to be a default template icon, but I've made my own icon here. And I've made a separate mod just to show you how uploading things work. So for Thunderstore, we want to find the thunderstore.toml file. So let's go to source, glimpse, and I think I already have it open, but if we click on this, if we open this up, and we can edit this now. So we have the namespace, the name of the actual mod, and we can add the description. So if we add in our own description of what our mod is. Okay, so this is my description for the mod. And I don't have a website URL yet, but I might add that later. And we can see we have dependencies here. This is BepInEx. Our icon, readme, we could change. So I'm going to Control S just to save this right now. I'm going to go to readme, which is saved. It should be in here somewhere. Okay, here it is. So what does a readme look like? Okay, describe your project here. And okay, let me change this up and I'll be right back. Okay, so this is my basic readme. That's all there is to the mod. If I go back to my toml file, we have, okay, so we have the icon, we have the readme, and okay, this is where the mod is going to be saved. I see, I'm just making sure. Change log. Okay, so just for the change log, let's do initial release. That's all we need. And now, if we go back to Thunderstore, toml. Now, we want to make our license actually have, or actually be a license. So what I would do is I would go to here, and I think I'll just open this up in here. And by default, it just tells you to choose a license. And you could just have it like this for now, but I would not recommend that. But just to make it proper, I'll give it an actual license by just copying the MIT license. So I'm just going to go over here. This is a mod I've already made. I'm going to copy the raw file for this, and I'm going to paste this in here. So now this has the MIT license. And so that should be about it for our toml file. We have the name of our mod, we have our description. We don't have a website URL yet, but we could add that later if we wanted to. We have the version name and everything else, so that's pretty good. So I'm going to close out of this now, and I'm going to go to the Peak wiki. I'm going to copy this that they've given. So you can build a Thunderstore package by running this command that they've given us. Target pack ts. I wonder if we need a path, because it doesn't tell us the path. Okay, I'm going to open the command with this path, and maybe that'll do something. So .build c release target pack tsvd. Okay, and so now it should be done. And it tells me, at least the wiki tells me, that it should be in artifacts Thunderstore. And I assume that will be a zip file. So artifacts, Thunderstore, and there it is, there is a zip file. So all we have to do now, if we just look in here, okay. So we have the license, we have changelog, we have everything that we need. Glimpse. Okay. And so now if I go to Thunderstore and I click on upload and I click on the team, the community, which is peak, and the category, it's just what's the client side mod, and just say mod, why not? And now if I drag the glimpse zip file in here, it should be done once I press submit. Just gonna close out this. I'm gonna close this as well. And there we go. Now it's uploaded to Thunderstore. There might be a delay because this doesn't get uploaded instantly. It takes some time. It might take up to an hour or 2 hours. So you might not see it. You might not see it on the browse page instantly. Sometimes you might though. Yeah, it's not there right now. But if you go to view listing, then you'll see the page. You'll see the mod uploaded. You'll see the README there, which we added. And so if we downloaded this and we ran it, it would work. But yeah, that's how you upload a mod. If you wanted to update a mod as well, which I can show you really quickly. Here, okay. So if we wanted to update our mod, let's say we made a typo or something. We could go back here and we could say, I'll just add a good luck. Good luck, okay. Now if we save that and we go back to okay, there we go. Let's say 0.1.1. And now if we mess with the version, or now if we rebuild again, like going in the main folder path right here and typing cmd, just so we're in this path where the mod is, and we paste that in, and let's see if that does something. It should show the correct version now. So if we go back here, okay, I did see that. Artifacts, Thunderstore. Okay, there we go. There's the version that we want. So if we delete, we could delete this old version. And if we go back to Thunderstore and go to upload and click on the same team that we were using before and peak, client side, mods. You don't have to remember what categories you did, but you know, it's nice to keep it consistent. And if you drag this in, then this will update the mod that we just uploaded. So if I click submit, it won't create a new mod. It'll simply just update the mod that we just uploaded. And there we go. If I click view listing, and if I click on versions, you can see that it keeps this old one and it also has this new one because it knows it's the same mod. And that's pretty much it.